It seems the overall consensus with Tarkov right now is that the game is in a really rough state, and that sentiment, for the most part, is echoed by those who invest a lot of time into the game. Whether it's streamers or just passionate players, the feelings surrounding the game is a whole mix of confusion, concern, frustration, and thinning patience. The promised land of what this game could become looms over the horizon, but what's in front of us right now is a situation that this game has not dealt with before on this magnitude. Right now, as it stands, people are upset at the number of blatant cheaters roaming every single map, myself included. People are upset at this game's update schedule and how slow it's become. People are upset how quickly players can blast through the game and reach endgame. People are reaching the end of their rope sooner than ever before, in regards to how quickly they become desensitized to new content and just get bored with the game as a whole. For anyone listening, if you're enjoying this game, whether you're brand new or you're a veteran you've been playing for years, please just enjoy it. The game still has a lot to offer, with tons of replayability with how many guns you can use, spice up your gameplay, and how many ways you can build them. But as someone who's been playing this game since 2017, some of these issues and concepts are as old as the game itself. Others are new and a byproduct of what's happened to this game over the last 2 years. People are bored, so they leave, lest they wait for any kind of significant update to the game that'll pull them back in. With wipe cycles being stretched to their absolute limits, people are voicing their disdain for how slow things have become. And honestly, those feelings are valid. Granted, when it's spewed like toxic bile to the developers, it helps no one and makes you look like an ass, but when it's given constructively, it can really give some perspective on just how far this game has become. Granted, I would be willing to bet BSG is way more aware of how the community feels, more so than we give them credit for. And not even because the community is telling them across the internet. Nikita especially is probably the most upset with how things are than anyone else. Since this is his passion project, when things are going sour, it hits him the hardest because all he wants to do is take the vision he has for Tarkov and translate it into his game. Especially when he's on a podcast, you can visibly see the frustration on his face when he knows things are awry. Either way, no one wants to see this game fail. All we want is Nikita to have the vision that he has in his head and inject it into the game. And if you don't like those ideas or visions, and like Tarkov the way it is, then the arena mode that's coming out in the future will be your new home. Arena will be focused more on short games, small maps, and heavy PvP situations. It'll be a paradise for anyone that enjoys holding down W key and using a gun with less than 40 recoil. For everyone else, Tarkov is going to get harder. Hopefully. Hot take. Old Tarkov, era 2017-2018, was way harder and arguably closer to the vision this game has had and strived for since its incarnation. The idea of survival and progression through struggle was the core of old Tarkov. The game had a fraction of the content it has now, and for some reason, even though this idea is wrong, it makes sense in my head. Now, while it may be closer to that vision, it doesn't necessarily mean it's better. The game was fundamentally worse before, even looking past nostalgia for the old game and how incredible it was still regardless. If our goal is to survive and struggle in this world, then it would make sense that our options are limited. And while they certainly are in the early game, because so much stuff exists in Tarkov now, the potential to come across something and have it at your disposal is the primary cause for these mixed feelings. I want the game to be hard. I want us to have shitty guns with barely any attachments on them for a long time, and I want to have to use bad ammo for a long time, and currently, we're in the polar opposite of those ideas. Money is another large point of contention. It's too easy to obtain and loses its value very quickly. Your choices with your funds lose their impact so early on. Being strapped for cash isn't something that has ever happened to me, not once. Money is extremely easy to farm. Even if you don't optimize it to its maximum potential, you'd be surprised how quickly you can see that ruble count climb. Because money is so available, players can just brute force their way through by acquiring the gear they need from the flea market. Ugh. This single feature has caused arguably the most amount of grief and conversation around Tarkov. People either love it and want it to stay, hate it and want it to go away, or are mixed and just want regulation to what goes in the flea market. Honestly, for me, I played the game without it. I could do it again. I'm not personally advocating for its disappearance, but if we woke up one day and it was gone, I really wouldn't be that upset. The idea on paper is awesome, but the problem is what can go up on the flea and how much of those items are on the flea due to an abundance of them in the world. A fully driven player economy will almost always fall into the situation of inflation, ironically New World being the exception to that rule, where things become grossly expensive due to supply and demand. The developers want no part in how it's moderated. Granted, events, shortages, and influxes of items will always skew the prices of things here and there, but they don't want to blacklist items off the market for one reason or another. Either way, the flea market isn't going anywhere, Nikita has been very adamant about that, and while I don't mind that personally, I would also be okay if they restricted it to some items being allowed and not allowed on the flea market personally. Player frustration seems to stem from the lack of our ability to trust our own senses, whether it's vision or hearing, especially the latter. These are vital to the survival of your character in-game. When they don't function properly, it can create large amounts of frustration and angst towards these situations where we need to rely on these senses, only to have them fail when they matter most. These feelings are only compounded by the movement in the game, how fast we move, and because of that, how the servers usually have to play catch-up, so it always feels like you're behind on our screen versus when someone kills us it looks perfectly fine. These are fundamental issues, deep-rooted in the bellies of Tarkov's infrastructure. All we can do is hope that one day these feelings get resolved. Tarkov is a video game experience that honestly should be experienced by everyone who enjoys challenging games at least once in their life. There are many lessons to be learned and can really open your eyes to the potential of first-person shooters. For some, it has ruined more arcadey traditional shooters. Not for me, at least not yet, but there are still many issues and wants that the game has not fulfilled yet. And I hope that with each patch, we get one step closer to the true vision of Tarkov, and hopefully the melancholy feeling that many of us are still feeling will subside, and will be replaced with simply just wonder, joy, and awe at the magnitude of this game. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch this video, and I hope to see you in future ones.